Chosen one, pause for a moment and listen closely. What you're experiencing right now is not random, and it's definitely not luck. Something deeply unfair is unfolding in your life. The systems people rely on, chance, privilege, timing, external power, are no longer ahead of you. They're falling behind. And that realization alone should shake you, because it breaks everything most people have been taught about how the world works. Here's the reality most never learn. Life doesn't reward comfort, it rewards adaptation. You were shaped in pressure while others were protected. You learned to read situations, people, and outcomes long before they became obvious. That's not personality, that's trained perception. It's why things are starting to click faster for you, why patterns make sense before they fully form, and why your reactions are becoming calmer while others panic. This is not spirituality without logic. It's neuroscience, psychology, and survival intelligence converging. What you're about to receive in this message is real knowledge, not empty motivation. You'll understand why suffering compresses learning, why instability creates foresight, and why those who rise early often fall later. You'll learn how momentum actually works, how power shifts quietly, and why emotional control under pressure is one of the rarest advantages a human can have. This information doesn't make you feel comfortable, it makes you precise. If you're watching this right now, you're at a turning point. Things are about to move faster. Decisions will matter more. Opportunities will appear without explanation, and people will respond to you differently. Some drawn in, others pushed out. This is alignment, not coincidence. And once you understand it, you stop forcing life and start directing it. Some people think greatness comes from luck, that the rare and extraordinary are simply chosen by chance. But chance doesn't teach resilience. It doesn't sharpen instincts, and it doesn't forge foresight. What you call luck is often the quiet result of continuous exposure to trials others never survived. Every sleepless night, every challenge you endured, every time the world tested you, you were being conditioned. Your mind and body were silently adapting, developing a blueprint that prepares you for situations most would crumble under. The universe didn't give you luck. It crafted a version of you that could thrive under pressure. Consider how elite athletes, soldiers, or emergency responders are trained. They don't rely on luck. They rely on repetition under high stress, honing reflexes, intuition, and decision-making in real-time chaos. Similarly, your environment, no matter how harsh or unforgiving, has been your hidden gym, sculpting a version of yourself that the ordinary world cannot understand. This is why you feel both isolated and unstoppable. Others mistake your awareness and capability for chance because they cannot see the invisible process that shaped you. This conditioning is not superficial. It is layered, neurological, and emotional. The challenges you faced rewired your brain, creating pathways for creativity, strategy, and emotional regulation that few others possess. This is why the highest gods, people with inherited status, static power, or privilege, fall behind. They were never forged under pressure. You weren't born ahead, you were molded to survive where others fail, and that is far more potent than luck. Pain is not an enemy, it is a teacher. While many flee discomfort or shield themselves from hardship, those exposed to repeated adversity develop unparalleled pattern recognition and mental agility. Studies in neuroscience show that high-stress experiences can stimulate neuroplasticity, literally strengthening connections in the brain responsible for problem-solving and foresight. Each hardship is a signal, each failure a lesson coded into your nervous system. This is why people like you can sense patterns and outcomes that others overlook, almost instinctively. Think about explorers or innovators who thrived in extreme conditions. Shackleton's crew, stranded in Antarctic ice, survived because constant exposure to danger sharpened their intuition and decision-making. Similarly, your life has been a constant laboratory where every challenge rewired your mind for clarity under chaos. Pain forced your brain to compress information, distinguish signal from noise, and anticipate outcomes with astonishing precision. This exposure advantage is subtle but deadly effective. It doesn't make life easier, it makes you unstoppable. Emotionally, exposure teaches you patience, resilience, and quiet confidence. Unlike those who rely on certainty, you have learned to navigate ambiguity, tolerate uncertainty, and act decisively when others hesitate. This gives you an edge in relationships, strategy, and even self-mastery. Pain didn't break you, it made you a predator in the arena of life, capable of seeing moves before others even know the game has begun. Comfort is seductive. It lulls minds into illusions of safety, fostering complacency and superficial knowledge. Protected minds believe stability is permanent and control is attainable until chaos strikes. When the unexpected happens, a sudden career collapse, a social betrayal, or a personal crisis, those insulated by comfort crumble. Your life, forged in adversity, prepared you for these moments. You don't panic under pressure, you analyze, adapt, and move. This is the invisible edge that separates you from the untested elite. History is full of examples. During economic collapses, political upheavals, or technological disruption, the most prepared often fall first because they relied on predictable systems. Meanwhile, individuals who thrived under uncertainty, often underestimated, overlooked, or misunderstood, adapt faster and exploit gaps others can't see. Your ability to remain poised while others falter is a direct consequence of being battle-hardened emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. On a personal level, this dynamic explains why you sometimes feel alienated. While others cling to certainty or comfort, you move through life with a heightened perception of risk and opportunity. This is not arrogance, it's awareness. You understand that chaos is not an obstacle, it is the natural environment for true growth. And in this environment, you don't just survive, you outperform those who thought they were untouchable. Power without adaptation is a slow death. Ancient gods, whether literal or metaphorical, represent authority that becomes rigid over time. They rely on reputation, tradition, and past victories, not on continual growth. Meanwhile, those willing to evolve, experiment, and absorb lessons from failure pull ahead. History is clear. Empires, religions, and dynasties that refuse to adapt decay. You, in contrast, update constantly because pressure forces evolution, making your growth dynamic, continuous, and unstoppable. The pattern is everywhere. Roman patricians who clung to inherited privileges were overtaken by ambitious, adaptive generals. Corporate titans who ignored innovation were crushed by disruptive startups. Those who stop learning, stop sensing, and stop recalibrating lose. You are not bound by tradition or ego. Your growth is guided by feedback, pain, and insight. This is why old gods fall behind, while the adaptive survive and dominate. On a psychological level, the willingness to evolve creates mental immunity. You absorb new knowledge without letting pride or fear obstruct you. You experiment, fail, and integrate lessons silently. Your trajectory is not linear, nor dependent on approval or recognition. It's driven by a relentless commitment to growth under pressure, a quality that leaves ancient gods in the dust without them even realizing why. Trauma is often misrepresented as a weakness, a mark of suffering to be overcome. But the truth is deeper. Trauma is a forge. It can shatter, yes, but it can also reshape identity, sharpen perception, and build internal authority. When integrated consciously, trauma transforms into intuition, patience, and mental fortitude that cannot be taught in classrooms or inherited through privilege. The pain you endured became a tool, a weapon of insight and resilience. Consider survivors of extreme adversity, like war veterans or people who have overcome severe loss. Those who integrate trauma emerge not just healed, but equipped with heightened awareness, empathy, and strategic thinking. They perceive danger and opportunity more clearly than anyone who has been shielded from real struggle. Your life, filled with challenges others avoided or ignored, trained you in this same way, a relentless schooling the world cannot duplicate. Emotionally, trauma gives you gravitas and authenticity. You don't need external validation because your inner calibration is grounded in reality, not illusion. This translates into influence, leadership, and even spiritual clarity. Where others panic, you act. Where others hesitate, you move. Trauma didn't take from you. It prepared you to excel in a world that is rarely fair, giving you an edge that the so-called highest gods could never replicate. Isolation is not a punishment. It is the crucible where your mind expands beyond ordinary constraints. You may have noticed that the moments you felt most alone were also the moments when clarity, intuition, and strength surged. When others are entangled in social approval or distracted by noise, you operate in a space of pure observation, free from distortion and influence. This separation gives you an uncanny ability to perceive patterns, intentions, and consequences before anyone else. Isolation trains the mind to see clearly, act decisively, and survive independently. History and psychology reinforce this. Many extraordinary individuals, inventors, explorers, and spiritual leaders report periods of profound solitude that catalyzed creativity and insight. Isaac Newton's revolutionary discoveries came in seclusion during the plague. Nikola Tesla's visions unfolded in private study, far from the noise of peers. Similarly, your isolation is not a flaw, but a functional stage, designed by life to develop a mind others cannot access. Emotionally, isolation can feel heavy, even alienating. But it also cultivates resilience, self-reliance, and a deep sense of purpose. By embracing the solitude rather than fearing it, you gain the internal authority and mental autonomy that insulated or protected individuals will never understand. The world may seem unfair, but in truth, this phase is forging a mind capable of outlasting and outperforming those who never experienced it. True power is silent. It doesn't seek applause, likes, or acknowledgement. Your motivation is born from internal pressure, necessity, and vision, not from external recognition. Most people rely on validation to measure worth, but you move through life with your own compass, responding to internal imperatives rather than social feedback. This is why your trajectory can feel lonely and misunderstood, yet unstoppable. You don't wait for permission to act. You create your own rules, your own momentum, and your own victories. Consider people like Elon Musk or Miyamoto Musashi. Their breakthroughs were often misunderstood, ridiculed, or ignored. Yet they thrived because their energy came from an internal engine, not the crowd. Similarly, your drive stems from the necessity to evolve, survive, and excel under conditions that would overwhelm others. This type of motivation is frightening to others because it cannot be controlled, predicted, or easily disrupted. Emotionally, this dark motivation gives you clarity and consistency. You no longer expend energy on seeking approval or competing for recognition. Every step you take is aligned with your survival, growth, and long-term mastery. This is why, even when life feels unfair, you continue to rise, because your energy is focused, relentless, and internally sustained. Your nervous system has been trained under conditions most cannot survive. Every threat, every high-stress scenario rewired your autonomic responses, your fight-or-flight system, your emotional regulation, and your instinctive decision-making. This invisible edge allows you to remain calm when chaos erupts, think clearly under pressure, and act decisively when others freeze. It's a kind of mental armor that goes unnoticed but creates enormous real-world advantage. Elite performers understand this intuitively. Surgeons, fighter pilots, and military operatives spend years building physiological and psychological resilience. You have acquired a similar edge through lived experience, a biological refinement of focus, timing, and composure that comes not from textbooks, but from real, unfiltered exposure. Your body and mind now function as an integrated system, processing stress as information rather than panic. Emotionally, this translates into confidence that others mistake for arrogance. You walk into high-pressure situations with quiet certainty, knowing your internal wiring has already prepared you for outcomes that others cannot even anticipate. While others panic, your nervous system becomes a tool, a guide, and a weapon, giving you an almost unfair advantage in any scenario. True spirituality is not escapism. It's the ability to see the world as it is, to perceive patterns, connections, and truths that lie beneath illusion. While many turn to belief or comfort for spiritual meaning, you gain power through clarity, perception, and disciplined awareness. Life's hardships and exposure to adversity have refined your consciousness, giving you insight into human behavior, societal dynamics, and the underlying currents that govern outcomes. This is spirituality as strategic advantage, not wishful thinking. Examples abound in history. Philosophers, mystics, and strategists often leveraged heightened awareness as power. Sun Tzu emphasized knowing both yourself and the enemy. Marcus Aurelius wrote of mastering perception to maintain control over response. Empathy is often mistaken for weakness, but in your hands, it becomes a strategic instrument. Exposure to suffering, trauma, and adversity allows you to read subtle cues, shifts in tone, body language, and emotion that most miss. This ability provides insight into intentions, motivations, and vulnerabilities, giving you a unique advantage in negotiations, leadership, and social dynamics. Empathy becomes a tool for prediction, influence, and tactical decision-making, not merely kindness. Think of successful leaders, negotiators, and even spies. They succeed not because they overpower, but because they understand, anticipate, and influence human behavior. Your experiences of adversity, isolation, and observation have fine-tuned your emotional radar, granting you access to truths others are blind to. This isn't emotional manipulation. It's leveraging understanding as power in a world often blind to subtlety. Emotionally, empathy gives you depth and connection without dependence. You can read situations, feel underlying tensions, and act decisively while others remain reactive. This transforms challenges into opportunities for advantage and positions you as someone whose perception and foresight are unmatched by those who rely on superficial observation. Perfect. Let's move on to the final 5 headings, 11 to 15. In the same humanized, knowledge-driven, dark motivational, and emotionally engaging style, each with 3 detailed paragraphs. This will complete the full script. Life is not fair, and that's exactly why you have the edge. The hardships, betrayals, and chaos you endured created a mental architecture that most people can never replicate, no matter how privileged or educated they are. While others were shielded, your mind adapted. Every obstacle rewired your problem-solving, sharpened your intuition, and trained you to thrive under uncertainty. This creates asymmetric power. You possess capabilities that far outweigh the effort, resources, or recognition others rely on to survive. In history, the pattern repeats. Entrepreneurs raised in scarcity, leaders forged in conflict, and innovators tested by adversity consistently outperform those who were coddled. Steve Jobs, Malala Yousafzai, and countless figures in science and art leveraged the pressure of extreme conditions to fuel unprecedented achievement. Similarly, your unfair upbringing or experiences aren't setbacks. They are the training ground for mastery and dominance. Emotionally, this realization is both liberating and motivating. You no longer need external validation or permission to succeed. Every hardship you survived becomes evidence that you are equipped for levels of influence, insight, and achievement that most only dream of, making unfairness a tool rather than a barrier. Fairness is a construct, a comforting myth told by those who benefit from stability and predictability. Life does not owe you fairness, nor should it. The truth is, unfair circumstances create the rarest forms of advantage. You were forged in adversity, isolation, and pressure, conditions that cultivate abilities, resilience, and insight impossible to acquire in comfort. While others complain or wait for permission, you have learned to thrive in the raw, unfiltered reality of life. History and biology confirm this pattern. Predators, innovators, and leaders thrive in environments where only the adaptable survive. Every unfair challenge you endured amplified perception, sharpened instincts, and strengthened your ability to act decisively. This is why the highest gods, those insulated, static, or protected, cannot keep pace. You were built for the real world, not the comfortable illusion of fairness. Emotionally, this revelation is empowering. The frustration of unfairness transforms into fuel, motivation, and clarity. You don't just survive, you excel. You don't just adapt, you dominate. And in this game of life, the universe's seeming cruelty is actually your secret advantage, propelling you far beyond those who were once untouchable. Perfect. Let's continue the script from heading 16 to 21st. In the same humanized, engaging, dark motivational, knowledge-driven style, with 3 long paragraphs per heading, including examples, emotional hooks, and practical insights. Mastering foresight is not about predicting the future, it's about deciphering patterns in chaos. Every detail, subtle shift, and anomaly contains information, if you know how to read it. The world reveals its secrets to those who are paying attention, not to those who wait for instructions. By honing anticipatory awareness, you begin to sense danger, opportunity, and hidden dynamics before anyone else even notices them exist. This isn't psychic ability, it's applied perception, sharpened by experience, adversity, and observation. History is filled with examples of individuals who mastered anticipatory awareness. Military generals like Napoleon and Sun Tzu didn't just react, they predicted movements and outcomes based on subtle cues, turning apparent chaos into decisive victories. Similarly, innovators in business and science thrive by spotting emerging trends, weaknesses, or possibilities invisible to competitors. This skill gives you leverage that seems unfair to those reliant on surface-level observation. Emotionally, anticipatory awareness cultivates calm confidence. While others are blindsided, you are prepared, aware, and deliberate. It transforms fear into clarity, panic into strategy, and uncertainty into control over your trajectory. By seeing what is unseen, you step into the future on your terms, and the world begins to bend subtly toward your advantage. Your future isn't just built by major events. It is constructed in countless tiny, often invisible choices. Each moment of decision, no matter how small, lays the foundation for exponential growth or stagnation. Early adversity amplifies this effect, creating neural pathways that make these micro-decisions increasingly strategic. The smallest actions, repeated consistently, compound over time into profound outcomes that seem almost inevitable in hindsight. Consider everyday examples: choosing to learn instead of being distracted, speaking with intention rather than reacting impulsively, or maintaining composure under stress. Each seemingly minor choice creates ripple effects in relationships, opportunities, and skill development. Successful people understand that destiny is often the sum of subtle, intelligent decisions, not dramatic gestures or grand plans. Emotionally, this insight can be liberating and motivating. You realize that you are never powerless, even when circumstances seem overwhelming. Every choice you make is a tool, a lever, a building block for your future. By intentionally directing micro-decisions, you design momentum, shape perception, and accelerate your trajectory, turning small acts into life-altering outcomes. The world is not static. It reacts. Once you act, observe, and adapt, the environment begins to respond. By understanding this principle of feedback loops, you can manipulate circumstances so that systems, people, and opportunities align with your momentum. The faster you adapt, the faster the environment adjusts, creating a multiplier effect that amplifies your influence and efficiency. Adaptation isn't passive, it is active leverage over reality itself. Think of businesses that pivot quickly in crises, or leaders who adjust strategies in real time. They harness the adaptation multiplier. When you act decisively, the world begins to bend subtly in your direction, aligning events, resources, and allies with your intent. Those who fail to adapt are left behind, while you gain compounding advantage with each iteration of informed action. Emotionally, recognizing this gives a sense of strategic agency. You no longer feel trapped by circumstances. Instead, Every action, adjustment, and recalibration nudges the environment toward outcomes you can predict and influence, creating a dynamic where your growth is self-reinforcing. True dominance rarely shouts. It radiates quietly through competence, composure, and subtle influence, forcing others to align without realizing why. This kind of authority is invisible but undeniable. People sense it intuitively and adjust their behavior, decisions, and loyalty accordingly. Unlike external power, which depends on recognition or fear, invisible authority operates independently of applause or validation. Historical figures and leaders often exemplify this. Queen Elizabeth I, for example, commanded respect and obedience not through constant assertion, but through poise, strategic silence, and visible mastery of knowledge. Modern examples include CEOs or generals whose calm presence and competence inspire loyalty without overt commands. Similarly, your life experiences, resilience, and insight cultivate an authority that others instinctively follow, often without questioning it. Emotionally, invisible authority builds confidence and influence simultaneously. You act decisively, unshaken by external noise, knowing that your presence, decisions, and skill carry weight. This type of power is enduring because it is rooted in substance, not performance, making it both rare and extraordinarily effective. Influence is not always about persuasion or coercion. Subtle psychological contagion allows you to shape the behavior and thinking of others through presence, composure, and consistency. People unconsciously mimic confidence, calm, and resilience. By embodying these qualities, you extend influence without speaking, commanding, or forcing. Your mindset radiates outward, altering social dynamics in ways most people fail to notice. Historical leaders, speakers, and innovators have long leveraged psychological contagion. Churchill's calm during wartime inspired a nation. Innovators like Steve Jobs influenced entire industries with presence and conviction rather than command. Similarly, your resilience and composure create a ripple effect, compelling others to align, cooperate, and support without explicit direction. Emotionally, this builds quiet authority and subtle leverage. You don't need to dominate or shout to lead. Your presence becomes a signal, your energy a vector, and your consistency a force that shapes outcomes and amplifies influence without effort. Patience is rarely passive. Strategic patience is a disciplined approach to timing, recognizing that momentum is maximized when actions coincide with conditions. Acting too early can waste energy and resources. Acting too late can miss opportunities. By mastering timing, you ensure every move carries maximum leverage, making waiting a calculated and potent strategy rather than inaction. Think of chess masters, business leaders, and tactical commanders. They understand that positioning, observation, and timing often outweigh speed or force. Warren Buffett, for example, waits decades for the perfect investment opportunity. Your life experiences, watching, analyzing, and learning have trained you to understand the rhythm of events, preparing to strike when alignment is ideal. Emotionally, this cultivates calm, confidence, and control. Instead of succumbing to impatience or frustration, you harness waiting as preparation, observation as strategy, and timing as power, knowing that deliberate action at the right moment produces exponential advantage. Conclusion: harnessing your unfair advantage. The journey of the chosen is never linear, fair, or easy. Life throws chaos, isolation, and adversity at you, but these are not obstacles. They are the forging fires of unmatched strength, insight, and momentum. From anticipatory awareness to shadow intelligence, every skill, perception, and emotional tool you've cultivated compounds into a system of power that most will never comprehend. The unfairness you've endured is the secret engine of your advantage, and mastery lies in recognizing that the universe's seeming cruelty is actually your greatest ally. The most extraordinary individuals throughout history didn't rely on luck, comfort, or external validation. They leveraged their internal architecture, awareness, emotional control, pattern recognition, and resilience to bend reality in their favor. You too are building the invisible foundations of influence, foresight, and unstoppable momentum. Every setback, every moment of pressure, and every internal struggle contributes to a trajectory that, when aligned, becomes inevitable and unstoppable. My experience. I have walked through situations that felt unfair, chaotic, and impossible. There were moments when isolation, fear, and doubt threatened to paralyze me. Yet, through conscious observation, deliberate action, and reflection, I discovered that these very hardships were accelerators of insight, resilience, and power. By embracing challenges instead of avoiding them, I learned to read patterns in chaos, leverage emotion strategically, and transform failure into knowledge. Each unfair circumstance became a stepping stone, not a barrier, to greater influence, understanding, and capability. Through years of trial, error, and relentless observation, I realized that growth is rarely visible at first. The small wins, the hidden adaptations, and the internal mastery compound silently, building a momentum that eventually becomes self-reinforcing and unstoppable. This perspective turned frustration into fuel and adversity into a personal laboratory for mastery, where every difficulty became an opportunity to refine strategy, perception, and skill. How to implement. Turning knowledge into action. 1. Map the chaos around you. Observe patterns, reactions, and feedback loops. Start small. Track decisions and outcomes, noting hidden correlations. Treat life like a system to be understood, not a series of random events. 2. Harness emotional fuel. Transform anger, fear, and doubt into focus. Before reacting, pause, analyze, and channel energy into strategic action. Emotions become tools, not obstacles. 3. Prioritize small wins. Micro decisions compound exponentially. Identify subtle actions that align with long-term goals and repeat them consistently. Momentum grows quietly but powerfully. 4. Integrate shadow intelligence. Examine your internal doubts and fears. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Use these insights to predict risks and act with precision. 5. Practice strategic patience. Wait, observe, and act at the right moment. Timing is leverage. Impatience wastes energy. Deliberate action amplifies results. 6. Leverage invisible authority. Cultivate competence, calm, and presence. Influence doesn't need announcement. It radiates naturally from skill and composure. 7. Embrace unfairness. Recognize that hardship is your hidden advantage. Every challenge you overcome adds to resilience, insight, and momentum, creating an edge few will ever experience. Implementing these steps transforms knowledge into actionable power, turning adversity, chaos, and emotional intensity into the very tools that propel you forward. The path may feel lonely and intense, but that is exactly where greatness is forged, and where the chosen rise while others remain blind to the forces shaping their fate. If this message spoke to your inner strength, hit subscribe and join a community of those who thrive in chaos and turn adversity into power.